Okay, I think we're live. You have to excuse my voice. There's something weird going on where I have a little catch here. So I said I'd go live today and talk a little bit about um, how Christian unschooling is different from secular unschooling and how it's different from other homeschooling styles to help you all understand a little bit more about this kind of somewhat slippery homeschooling style and to help you understand how it works. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about secular unschooling. And so secular unschooling, the mantra is trust children. Whereas Christian unschooling, the mantra is trust God. So that's one thing. Secular unschoolers, you may have seen a lot of radical unschooling, and there is a little bit of a variation in how they would practice unschooling. And they may or may not teach a moral compass, and they may or may not parent. And what I mean by that is, teaching good habits, and instilling, basic things like bedtimes and eating habits and how you treat people. I have seen a lot of, I guess, what you would call radical unschooling, where the parent really isn't teaching any of those things, and that did not turn out so well, just to say. So from what I've observed, is completely child-led typically. They typically learn the 3 R's and other knowledge on their own as the child shows interest and sees fit. The parent's role is often, to buy materials, sign them up for classes. And in fact, in the area where I live, a lot of unschoolers sign their kids up for a one-day school program, or they sign them up for other outside classes, and that, I think, maybe you could take from that what you want, but that's often what happens. So it's sort of like the parent isn't teaching, and it's depending on others to provide that structure and learning for them, for those types of for some assurance that they're learning things, I suppose. Some, as I mentioned, do impose some parental framework, a parental fence, as you might call it, but not necessarily. So there's a heavy emphasis on the child leading the way. With a Christian unschooling, it's trusting God first and trusting God's timetable for your child first. It's understanding that while God has given a lot of raw material in this child, they come with their own passions, their own temperaments, their own gifts that God has instilled in them, and very often you can see that from a young age. The Bible says that foolishness is wrapped up in the heart of a child, and a child who is not taught morals and character and habits tends to be a very selfish, self-centered child. So as Christians, we understand that it is our responsibility to teach those things, to make sure that we instill morals, good character, and good habits for life. Parents in a Christian unschooling model seek to understand, who is this child? How did God make this child? How can I work with the Lord, come alongside, and encourage the development of those things? And while children tend to learn the 3 R's when it's developmentally appropriate on their developmental timetable in a Christian unschooling home, the parent often they will come alongside and provide some tools and encouragement in that. Sometimes that looks like a reading curriculum. Sometimes it looks like Bob books type of thing. Sometimes it's, you know, sitting with the child and helping them decipher words, but the parent is actively involved. And don't take that to mean that the parent isn't doing some of those things in a secular home either. You know, they very well could be, but in a Christian home, we want to be more intentional about that, encouraging our children. And if it's taking a long time, say with reading, we need to be open to the fact that there could be a stumbling block for that child that maybe is beyond our ability to help, and be open to what the Lord may say about that. Sometimes the Lord directs folks to an outside specialist. Sometimes the Lord is just saying, you need to just wait with this child. And we need to be sensitive to that and what he would say, because it's not the same for everyone. The parents typically provide and encourage relevant and meaningful ways to learn the 3 R's. We aren't necessarily giving our child a lot of handwriting practice sheets. Maybe instead we're encouraging our children to write a few of the words for a story that they themselves have been telling us, and we encourage them to put it to paper. Maybe for our older children who are learning, you know, about writing long pieces, maybe we encourage them to write a blog instead of writing research papers that go in a box and nobody reads. So we look for meaningful ways to do those things. We also monitor the use of our child's time, where a secular unschooler might be okay with their child spending the day watching cartoons or spending the day playing Minecraft. As Christians, we know that our time is precious, and our children's time is precious. And if we allow those things to continue for a long time, they can become an ingrained habit that can be difficult to break, and that may turn our child off to learning more productive things, and maybe even turn them off to being able to hear the voice of the Lord speaking to them. Just as we get distracted sometimes and fall into a rut, they can too. And so we monitor how they're using their time so that we can make sure that a lot of their time is productive. And we need to think about it in terms of what's developmentally appropriate. So a small child is going to spend a lot of time playing with their toys and building with blocks and moving the little train and all of those kinds of things. But, you know, they naturally tend to grow out of that. And so we want to keep that in mind. As Christian unschoolers, we also acknowledge that there are some things that our child may need to know that they're not really that interested in, or maybe they would be interested in if they were exposed to it in the right way. So we are looking for ways to sort of naturally encourage and introduce them to some of those kinds of things. We want to introduce and challenge them towards new ways to develop their passions and skills and talents that God gave them, but also to encourage them to expand their horizons when it comes to knowledge. So, you know, if a child is very interested in, say, World War II history, for example. That is a big thing in my house. My husband really likes that and is kind of, and he's an enthusiast, and so my sons are enthusiasts. Um, you know, you can use that main interest then to expand out to maybe World War One, and then further back to the Civil War, because every historical event feeds the next one. And you know, maybe that also expands out to some of the other European wars. You know, the Franco-Prussian War, and you know, the war in Croatia, and just different events impact other events, and you can bring that in through something that they are interested in. So that's a little bit different than just being completely child-led, and allowing the child to lead, and allowing the child to just do whatever they want, basically. We're not necessarily doing that. We're having an eye towards developing the child to use their gifts for God, and for the service of others, and keeping in mind that we want them to have a broad and rich experience of the world, and all that the Lord has for us, his creation, his story, his language of truth in mathematics, his ability, you know, his interest in all of the world cultures, and how we communicate with everyone through our language. So we keep those things in mind, but we try to avoid coercion and manipulation and the use of bribes and things like that. Instead, we ourselves show enthusiasm, and we actively hunt for relevant, meaningful ways to expose them to those things. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about how this is different from some of the other styles. So there are 3 styles that kind of overlap each other, and that also kind of overlap with Christian unschooling too. And those are delight-directed, relaxed, and unit studies. They kind of overlap with Christian unschooling a little bit. So the delight-directed is probably the closest one. And how delight-directed is a little bit different in that we're taking our children's interests, and then we are offering them things in their interest, which is similar to unschooling, but there's a lot more structure in parent-led activities around that. So some of those parent-led activities could be things that the child wouldn't do, and that can seem a bit contrived. So say, for example, a child has an interest in airplanes. So, you know, we get them a lot of books about airplanes, we get some videos about airplanes, and that's all great, and that's all still kind of unschooly too. But then we decide, well, you know, I want you to do some copy work about airplanes. And, you know, I want you to write a story about airplanes. Well, that's probably a little bit more contrived and parent-driven. The child may have chosen to write a story about airplanes on his own if we did not make them. But copy work, let's not make it about their favorite thing. And copying can have its purposes, but that is kind of a contrived activity in some ways. So that's sort of where we cross the line with that. So if it's driven by the child, it's still unschooling in that way. But when we add contrived, parent-driven, I make you do these things, then it becomes, it's a little different, and then it's more delight-directed. Relaxed homeschooling was something that was introduced by Mary Hood in the late 1980s, early 1990s. And the idea behind that is that you are a family, not a school. Your husband is not a principal, he's dad, he's the head of your household. And that we are not being driven by the societal norms, we're not being driven by a curriculum, but we're being driven by family goals. And there are a lot of similarities between that and unschooling as well. It's very good to have family goals. And if we are doing those goals with our children's input and their interests and their development in mind, then it's practically the same thing as unschooling in many ways. Relaxed, sometimes we think of relaxed homeschooling as, well, we have a relaxed schedule. You know, I am following a curriculum, but I don't do everything that the curriculum does, so I'm relaxed. Technically, that's not relaxed. That's, you know, that's not relaxed homeschooling in the technical sense of it. Unit studies are like taking delight-directed learning a little bit further, and unit studies can be a delight-directed study, as we probably have done, where everything is about, as I mentioned, airplanes, let's say. So then, you know, we talk about the science of airplanes, and we talk about the history of airplanes, and, you know, we do some distance and gas types of math problems with airplanes. Those are much more parent driven as well, and take the delight direct a little further in that they're not always driven by the kids and their interests. And unit studies can be driven by what the parent feels that the child needs to be doing this year, and they just cover all of the different subject areas around that one topic. So that's going a little bit further out. And then Charlotte Mason and classical are very similar. If you have read the books that Charlotte Mason wrote about her educational philosophy and method, it's very, very similar to classical, especially as you get into the high school years. However, there are a lot of aspects of Charlotte Mason and classical that unschoolers do use. The idea of living books. Unschoolers use a lot of living books, but they also use a lot of other materials too that Charlotte Mason would frown on, but that also weren't around at her time. And Charlotte Mason also emphasized character and habits and moral compass. She was a Christian, and a lot of the things that she said hold true for unschoolers also, but that is still a parent-driven approach. And it does involve copy work, it does involve teaching Latin, it does involve teaching another foreign language. It incorporates a lot of the arts, art and composers, and not just art appreciation, but teaching how to do art. But there are a lot of takeaways from the Charlotte Mason method that work very well in an unschooling environment, in that she felt that a child should not be doing a lot of busy work, but that should be fed upon a diet of ideas on a daily basis, and that they should be exposed to a broad range of ideas to feed their souls. And that is absolutely in line with unschooling. So, and personally, we did borrow a lot of ideas from Charlotte Mason to teach art and other kinds of things, and history and science in a relevant, experiential way. So there are a lot of great ideas there. And then From there, we go to, using a full curriculum or textbooks. And it's kind of obvious how the differences are there. But some unschoolers do use textbooks. And in fact, my younger daughter asked to use textbooks for her freshman year of high school. She asked to have biology through a textbook. She asked to have her Spanish and literature are with another homeschooling mom who's using a textbook. Well, the English is more of a living, it's a history course, so it's more living books. But she asked for that, and she's learning algebra through online/textbook teaching also. So you can unschool and use textbooks. It's just whether or not the child chose that, or whether you're saying, nope, you're going to learn this way. My older children, my oldest, did not learn math that way. Hers was purely living books and experiential things, and it was very different. So when it comes to that part of it, textbook, online learning, again, it depends on whether that's a method that your child chose or whether it's a method that you chose. My youngest son right now, he was exposed to Great Courses, which is a company that has a whole variety of materials that are taught by the best teachers in the country. That's why it's Great Courses. I don't know how they determined who is the best, but at any rate, they're contracted and they present their courses on lots of different topics. So he saw one of these because his older brother had some in our house from a course that I created for him for high school on ancient weaponry and engineering. And he decided, well, I really like learning about that, and I really like using those lectures. And so I said, well, let's put you on a trial of Great Courses Plus, an online thing. And no, I'm not getting any money if you decide to take a look at that. I'm just telling you what we're doing with him. So he watches Great Courses Plus, and learns a lot of history that way. So he really is enjoying that, but he wanted that. And I'm better with that than watching YouTube videos where there's a whole bunch of suggested ones on the side that I don't agree with, and that and ads and all of that. So I can avoid all of that and get excellent teaching for my son. So I hope that's helpful, and please put any questions below. Good morning, Tamara. I'm sorry. I've been so focused on the screen that I wasn't looking at the comments. Good morning. So I hope that was helpful and helped you kind of see some of the differences in the overlap and understand how a Christian treats unschooling versus maybe a secular approach to unschooling. So have a great day, and I will see you again soon.